Go buy tea for everyone. It happened at a famous food company's anniversary party. The company president's daughter, Emily, told me this while tossing a dollar coin at me. I quietly picked up the coin and handed it back to Emily. I felt an overwhelming sadness. Why did I have to be treated with such malice? The employees at the party, who witnessed the scene, turned pale and began murmuring among themselves. What's everyone fussing about? At that moment, Emily's father, the company president, approached me. And then, he uttered something shocking. My name is John, 42 years old. I usually work at a small seaweed processing factory on a remote island, but I recently returned to the city with my family. My two sons said they preferred the island over the city, and my wife also missed the wide open skies of the island. We came back to the city because we were invited to the anniversary party of a famous food company tomorrow. My mentor, the company's executive, Kevin, had asked us to attend, so we returned for the first time in years. Today, Kevin wanted to see me before the party, so I visited the company's headquarters alone. The company was housed in a skyscraper, one of the most prominent buildings in the city. As I admired the impressive building from below, a car roared into the entrance at high speed and stopped. A woman with long hair, wearing a flashy suit and black sunglasses, stepped out of the bright red sports car. Two employees hurriedly rushed out of the entrance to greet her. You're late. You should have been here to open the door before the car arrived. We're sorry. The two employees hung their heads and listened silently to her complaints. Do you know who I am? You're easily replaceable, you know. Seeing this scene, I felt sorry for the employees and couldn't stay silent, so I ended up speaking to the woman. Excuse me. All three of them turned to look at me in surprise at my sudden approach. The woman glared at me sharply and asked, "What is it?" I was momentarily intimidated by her fierce expression but managed to gather my courage and ask, "Excuse me, but I'd like to see Kevin, the executive." Kevin, you say? Do you have an appointment? Yes, my name is John. We're supposed to meet at 1 p.m. today. As soon as I said that, the woman, growing more irritated, said to me, "Why don't you ask at the reception? And by the way, Kevin, does he even work here?" The employees exchanged glances and nervously informed the woman. Kevin is the right-hand man of President Harrison. Miss Emily, you know him well. Hearing this, the woman's face turned red with indignation, her voice rising in anger. I don't know him. Now hurry up, we're going inside. I only came back because my father insisted. With that, she stormed into the building with the employees in tow. Though she was simply known as Emily, could it be that this woman is the daughter of Mr. Harrison, the president of this company? After they left, just as I was about to head to the reception, one of the employees from earlier returned to me. I apologize for earlier. I've contacted Kevin, so please take the elevator up to the 37th floor. Thank you for going out of your way. The employee bowed to me before quickly running back inside. Kevin, it's been a while. Good to see you again. Thank you for coming today. I was delighted to reunite with Kevin after so many years. The last time we met was at your wedding, right? How is your family doing? Yes, my sons are growing up fast. My eldest just started first grade, and my youngest is now 4. My wife is busy every day, experimenting with recipes using local ingredients with her friends on the island. Well, I can't wait to meet them tomorrow. Kevin was my mentor back when I was working at another company for a short period as part of my training. He was a department manager at the time. and he kindly guided me through my early days on the job. I once made a significant mistake that caused a loss for the company, but Kevin never blamed me. Instead, he accompanied me to the client and the company to apologize. On the way back from the client's office, I apologized to Kevin through tears. The words he said to me then have stayed with me ever since. People who never fail never grow. Those words continue to support me to this day. Kevin, please, drop the formalities. Just treat me the way you used to. Well, if you insist. Please. I haven't changed at all. After some initial hesitation, Kevin finally agreed, saying, "All right." We continued chatting about life on the island and my kids, and though we could have talked for hours, I decided to leave, not wanting to disrupt his work. Well, I should be heading out. Already? That's too bad. We'll have plenty of time to catch up at the party tomorrow. I'd like to introduce you to my family, too. That's true. I'm looking forward to it. I said my goodbyes to Kevin and opened the door, nearly bumping into a woman hurrying down the hallway, her high heels clicking loudly. "Ah!" she exclaimed, stopping suddenly. It was Emily, the president's daughter, who had been yelling in the entrance earlier. "Watch it. That was dangerous. I'm sorry. Are you all right?" As I hurriedly asked, Emily seemed to recognize me. "You. What are you doing here? How did you get into our company without permission?" "Well, you see." Hearing the commotion, Kevin quickly came out of his office and began explaining who I was to Emily. "Miss Emily, this is a friend of mine. We had arranged to meet today at the office. But isn't it strange to have someone unrelated to the company here during work hours? I'm telling my father." Upon hearing the words "unrelated to the company," Kevin's expression changed, and he began speaking slowly, trying to calm her down. "Miss Emily, this gentleman is not unrelated to the company. In fact, Before Kevin could reveal my identity, I stopped him and said, "Kevin, it's all right. I'll be leaving now." But I apologized to the woman, saying I'm sorry, and, not wanting to cause any more trouble during work, I hurried towards the elevator to leave the area as quickly as possible. From behind, I heard her shout, "Don't ever come back to our company again." Without looking back, I silently got into the elevator. What was supposed to be a joyful reunion with Kevin was ruined by Emily, and I left with a heavy heart. The next day, I headed to the anniversary party venue with my family. Since the party was in the evening, we planned to stop by my father's factory first and have lunch together. My kids were thrilled to see their grandparents again after so long. My father runs a small factory in a downtown area. I helped out there from the time I graduated middle school until I was 35. My father encouraged me to go to high school, but at the time, there were only 3 employees, including my father. And the factory's business was unstable, heavily influenced by the economy. Considering this, I decided not to pursue further education and instead chose to help out at the factory. "Grandpa, we're here." As my kids called out while entering the factory, my father emerged from the back upon hearing their voices. "Oh, you made it. Dad, it's been a while. How have you been?" "Your mom's been excited to make lunch ever since she heard you all were coming. I'll go help her then." With that, my wife and kids headed towards the main house. After we all had lunch together, just as we were about to leave for the party venue, the phone at the factory rang. It was a call from one of the factory's clients, explaining that due to an ordering mistake, They were short on deliveries to another company and were hoping we could help them out. However, it was Sunday and the factory was closed, with no employees present. We should try to help them out. It sounds like they're in trouble. But, Dad, you can't do it alone. Don't worry about it. You should head to the venue. The party starts at 4, right? It would be rude to be late. Knowing that my father couldn't possibly handle the workload on his own, I decided to stay behind and help him. I told my wife and kids to go ahead to the venue, assuring them I'd join them later. Although my father was reluctant at first, he silently started working when he saw me putting on the work overalls hanging on a chair in the factory. We finished the job a little after 4 p.m. My father quickly headed out to make the delivery, saying, "John, thank you. I'll take care of the delivery." As I watched him leave, I couldn't help but feel a deep respect for him, for the way he values everyone. The venue was a well-known, historic hotel in the city. In my haste, I forgot to change out of the oil-stained overalls and ended up running to the party's reception dressed like that. The receptionist initially gave me a puzzled look when I arrived in my dirty work clothes, but after confirming my name, she looked at me again and then profusely apologized, saying, "I'm sorry." "No, I'm sorry for being late." "Is everyone already inside?" "Yes, the party started about 30 minutes ago." "Please, go ahead." I was guided to the entrance, and as I opened the door to step inside, I immediately noticed Emily, the woman from earlier, standing there in a bright red, sequin mini dress, matching the color of the sports car I had seen. Behind her were the same 2 male employees. As soon as Emily caught sight of me, she loudly exclaimed, "Who's this filthy man that looks like a cockroach?" "Miss Emily, perhaps you should lower your voice. Everyone's staring at us." The other employees in the room turned their attention to us, curious about the commotion Emily was causing. A few employees near me started whispering, "Hey, isn't that? Could it be that Miss Emily doesn't know who that is? That can't be, she's the president's daughter. She must know." The murmuring continued, growing louder. "Wait a minute. Aren't you the rude man I almost bumped into at the company the other day? You've come all the way here, in that filthy outfit? What on earth do you want?" I was invited by Kevin." "Kevin, again? What on earth is he thinking, inviting someone as filthy and disgusting as you? He's completely useless." It wasn't just the fact that she called me filthy that shocked me, it hurt more that she insulted Kevin. "Please don't speak ill of Kevin. It's my fault for coming here dressed like this." Hearing that from me, Emily briefly looked like she was about to retaliate with a frustrated expression, but then quickly turned to me with a sly smile and said, "That's right. How dare you talk back to me, you filthy cockroach? But I'm kind, so I might forgive you. I'll even hire you as my servant. You should be grateful." Emily chuckled as she continued, "Listen carefully, this is an order from me." She opened her bag and pulled something out. "Go buy tea for everyone here," she said, throwing a dollar coin at me in front of the watching employees. At that moment, the employees around us turned pale and started murmuring in shock. Only Emily stood there, arms crossed, laughing. "What's everyone so worked up about? It's a great idea. I'm offering to buy tea for everyone here." I crouched down, picked up the dollar coin, and silently held it out to Emily. "What? Are you saying this isn't enough? Or do you just not want to go buy it?" She snatched the dollar coin from my hand as she spoke. I felt an overwhelming sadness. Why did I have to endure such treatment? Had I done something so terrible to deserve this from Emily? The party, which had been lively just moments before, had now fallen into chaos due to Emily's absurd behavior. Amidst the turmoil, I noticed someone slowly walking toward us. I recognized him instantly. I had known this person well since childhood. He stopped in front of me and said, "It's been a long time, John." Kyle. The room, which had been buzzing with murmurs, fell silent at his appearance. Only Emily continued her noisy outburst, "Who's this stranger now? Who even is he? I heard you were coming today, John, so I thought I'd stop by as well." "It's great to see you." Kyle pulled me into a gentle hug. I was truly happy. I had wanted to see Kyle for so long. When I was in elementary school, one of my father's factory clients went bankrupt due to a bounced check. At that time, Kyle was working for that bankrupt company. He was in his 20s back then, sending money back home to his family, but when the factory suddenly went under, he found himself in a tough spot. Seeing Kyle's predicament, my father offered him a place to work and live at our factory. Even though times were tough for our factory as well, my father couldn't bear to see Kyle struggling and decided to hire him. Kyle worked tirelessly every day. I still remember how my father would often say, "Kyle is quick to learn and has a natural talent." I looked up to Kyle as if he were my real older brother, and he, in turn, treated me like a little brother, often saying I reminded him of his own sibling back home. Years passed, and Kyle's skills became recognized, leading to an offer from a large company to hire him. Kyle initially turned down the offer outright, but my father strongly encouraged him to take the opportunity. "Kyle, you're destined to do meaningful work that helps others. You'll gain more experience out there than you would staying here," my father told him. On the morning Kyle left, I cried, pleading, "Don't go." Seeing me in tears, Kyle hugged me and promised, "I'll come back when I've made it. Wait for me until then." I believed in his promise, and after finishing middle school, I worked hard at my father's factory. I thought that if I worked diligently, I could become as skilled as Kyle and get closer to him. Time passed, and the factory eventually found stability by the time I was about to turn 35. One day, a man came to the factory. My father recognized him immediately and shouted, "Kyle, is that really you? It's been a long time, Mr. Nelson." Hearing his voice, I rushed out from the back, and when he saw me, he smiled warmly. "It's been a while, John. Kyle, I've missed you." His smile was just as I remembered, nostalgic and comforting. My father invited him to have dinner with us, and Kyle was delighted. He reminisced about my mother's cooking, and for the first time in years, we all sat down at the same table. After dinner, Kyle asked me, "John, are you married yet?" "No, I'm seeing someone, but I'm still not there yet." "Well, how about getting there?" "Huh? What do you mean?" Kyle sat down in front of us, folded his legs under him, and said, "I want you to take over my company, John." "What?" "I want you to become the chairman of all 50 of my group companies." "What? Chairman? Of 50 companies?" As I listened, I learned that Kyle was now the chairman of a group of 50 companies, and he wanted me to take over all of them. No way. I can't handle such a huge responsibility. I want you to do it because I trust you. No matter how many times I said it was impossible, Kyle kept insisting. Even my parents, who were initially shocked, eventually agreed with Kyle's proposal and ended up joining him in convincing me. Overwhelmed by their determination, I found myself saying, "All right, I'll give it a try." After that, I began studying business management at an accelerated pace. I also visited each of the group companies across the country, working undercover from the ground up to truly understand the business. I thought that by not revealing my identity as the chairman, I might better understand the true essence of the companies. During this time, I married my current wife and relocated my family to a remote island. On that island was a small seaweed processing factory, one of the group companies where I had been training. I had fallen in love with the island during that time. The factory emphasized the importance of human connections, which reminded me of my father's factory. Just recently, I had finally announced to the media that I was the current chairman. Emily, meanwhile, watched our reunion with a bored yawn. Gradually, the employees began to realize who we were, and eventually, they started whispering among themselves. "Isn't that the former chairman and the current chairman?" It seemed that Emily overheard this but didn't quite understand what it meant, so she asked her attendants, "What do they mean by the current and former chairman?" I didn't know until recently, but apparently, those two are the current and former chairman of our company. What? Why didn't anyone tell me? And why didn't you say anything sooner? Realizing I was the current chairman, Emily began to panic and started blaming the employees for not informing her sooner. "We've been traveling abroad with you for years, Miss Emily, and we only just returned. We didn't know who the current chairman was either." One of the employees shouted this, nearly in tears, before running out of the room. Seeing this, the other employee quietly followed suit. I sympathized with them. They had clearly reached their breaking point. After the employees left, Emily was left standing alone, surrounded by a crowd of employees who watched her from a distance. They ran away so quickly. "This is boring, I might as well leave too." Just then, the door opened, and Emily's father, Mr. Harrison, walked in. "Oh, Dad? Weren't you resting in your room?" After the party started and Mr. Harrison finished his greeting, it seems he took a break in a room for a while. The employees around me were saying that he's been busy with consecutive workdays and doesn't seem to be feeling well. It was the first time I saw Mr. Harrison, and I noticed that he did indeed look unwell. He had received a report from his secretary about the commotion and hurried back to the venue. Ignoring Emily's surprised expression, Mr. Harrison walked past her, approached me, and suddenly knelt down, bowing his head to the floor in a deep apology. "Mr. Nelson, I sincerely apologize for my daughter's behavior." Seeing her father bowing to me in front of all the employees, Emily seemed to be embarrassed and shouted, "Dad! What are you doing in front of everyone? Get up already." Still on his knees, Mr. Harrison raised his head and glared at Emily, shouting back, "You apologize too. Do you even know who this man is?" Despite her father's words, Emily showed no signs of concern. "Who? I don't know him well, but isn't he just the chairman of our company? That doesn't have anything to do with me, right?" Hearing this, Mr. Harrison began trembling with rage. "Emily, you are such a fool. It pains me to see how ignorant my own daughter has become." The employees in the room were watching the drama between the president and his daughter intently, not wanting to miss a single word. Mr. Harrison then turned back to me, resuming his bowing position, and said, "Mr. Nelson, I deeply apologize. The fact that my daughter has become like this is entirely my fault as her parent. I take full responsibility, and I intend to resign from my position as president immediately." His declaration of resignation sent a wave of shock throughout the room. "Mr. Harrison, please raise your head. There's no need to bow like this." I couldn't help but think that, regardless of the parent-child relationship, It wasn't right for a parent to bow an apology for something an adult daughter had done. So, I tried to stop him from continuing his apology. However, Mr. Harrison wouldn't budge. No, I have turned a blind eye to my daughter's mistakes for far too long. They say the more troublesome the child, the more you love them. But by giving her money and letting her do as she pleased, I've allowed her to become someone who has no sense of common decency and who looks down on others. This is all my responsibility. The resolve in his voice was strong, as if he had come to terms with his decision. From now on, I will resign as president, and furthermore. He then looked at Emily and made a shocking declaration. I will disown my daughter. What? Disown? His declaration was a shock not only to Emily but to me and everyone else present. You're over 30 now, a grown woman, and yet you know nothing about the world. You've lived selfishly, without learning how to interact with others. From now on, you will be on your own, and you will learn from scratch what the world is really like. No way. I absolutely refuse. No matter what you say, I'm not leaving home. Try and make me if you can. Emily remained defiant, even towards her own father, showing no intention of backing down. At that moment, bang! The entrance door burst open. Wait a minute. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. It was Emily's attendants, who had left earlier, now returning. We have something to confess about Miss Emily's wrongdoings. It's about the crimes Miss Emily tried to commit. What do you think you're doing, coming back now? The room, which had been silent moments before, buzzed with renewed excitement at the attendant's revelations. Miss Emily tried to take confidential company information without permission. She was planning to sell it to a rival company. What? Mr. Harrison turned pale as he heard this shocking confession from Emily's attendants, visibly shaken. Of course, it's impossible due to security measures, but when she realized she couldn't do that, she told us to find a way to withdraw money from the company instead. The attendants' confessions caused the employees' frustrations with Emily to boil over. What does she think this company is? It's the company we've worked so hard to support. And just because she's the boss's daughter, she's been doing whatever she wants at the company. Never show your face here again. As the employees' angry shouts filled the room, Mr. Harrison remained crouched on the floor, his head hung low in despair. Seeing Mr. Harrison in this state, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sympathy for him. To be betrayed like this by the daughter he had cared for so much. Meanwhile, Emily showed no signs of remorse. Shaking her leg impatiently and even occasionally clicking her tongue in irritation as she listened to the employees' accusations. Eventually, Mr. Harrison, still looking down, weakly stood up and said, "Can someone please call security?" When the security guards, summoned by the employees, arrived at the venue, Mr. Harrison pointed directly at Emily and made a firm request. "Please escort this woman out of here." "What? There's an intruder here. Remove her from the premises immediately." "What's wrong with you, Dad? Have you lost your mind?" "The one who's lost their mind is you. We're no longer father and daughter, you're a stranger to me. Now, get out." The security guards grabbed Emily by the arms and dragged her out of the venue. Even as she was being removed, Emily continued to shout loudly, "This can't be happening. Dad. Hey, let go of me. Do you know who I am?" I later heard that after Emily was escorted out of the hotel by the security guards, she still tried to force her way back in. And the police had to be called. Even when the police arrived, she continued to scream, "I'm the president's daughter." Don't touch me. Let me back in now. After Emily was removed from the venue, Mr. Harrison bowed his head to everyone and reiterated his intention to resign before attempting to leave the room. I stopped him and persuaded him to reconsider resigning and instead to make a renewed effort for the company's sake. I told him that if he truly felt remorse for what had happened, he should focus on what he could do to help the employees from now on. Mr. Harrison, however, resisted, saying, "I'm not qualified for that." At that moment, Kevin spoke up. "I've been saved by you many times. I've worked by your side for years, and I've always seen you think of the company and the employees. I believe everyone here shares that sentiment." The employees all nodded in agreement. With tears in his eyes at Kevin's words, Mr. Harrison still refused to retract his resignation, saying, "No, but even so. Mr. Harrison, I'm still young and inexperienced, but I'd like to share something with you. A mentor once told me something that has supported me ever since." I then spoke the words that had been so important to me. People who don't know failure can't grow. I believe that no matter how old you are, you can always start over and learn from your mistakes. That's why I want you to continue working hard for the employees' sake. Kyle, who had been listening quietly, stepped forward and said to Mr. Harrison, "Mr. Harrison, you worked hard and grew this company from the ground up. You may have made mistakes in raising your daughter, but as John just said, people who don't know failure can't grow. Please take that to heart and keep pushing forward." "I'm sorry, everyone, I'm so sorry." With that, President Harrison broke down in tears, unable to speak further. I put my arm around his shoulder, offering words of comfort. The employees, moved by the scene, began to applaud and continued for a long time. After that, Emily was indeed disowned by her parents and kicked out of the house. She was also sued by her former attendants, who claimed they had suffered emotional and physical abuse. And she was ordered to pay a substantial amount in damages. Unable to find employment and needing money to pay the damages, she eventually ended up working on a fishing boat owned by one of Kyle's acquaintances, helping with cleaning and assisting the fishermen. At first, Emily tried to escape frequently, so now the fishermen keep a close eye on her. A mutual acquaintance who had seen Emily recently reported that she looked nothing like her former flashy self, no makeup, unkempt hair, tanned and gaunt like an old woman. Even so, if she works hard there someday, she might become a much better person than she was back then. I'm holding on to that faint hope. As it turned out, my family wasn't in the party hall during the whole ordeal. My youngest son had fallen asleep, so the three of them had been resting in a waiting room. I was relieved to hear that. I didn't want my children to witness such a scene. When we left the hotel, it was already getting dark outside. As we were about to head home, Kyle was waiting for us. "John, today must have been tough for you." "Thanks, Kyle. It was tough for you too. Are you heading back to the island?" "Yeah, life there suits us better, both me and my family." I looked at my family, and they all nodded back at me with the same warm smiles. I'll keep studying business while working on the island and continue visiting the companies when necessary. It might inconvenience the company and make my family miss me when I'm away, but, Dad, because you're working hard, we'll work hard too. Me too. Even though I miss you sometimes, I love seeing you work so hard. Ooh, how romantic. I was so moved by my family's support that I had to look up to stop myself from tearing up. I'm glad I entrusted everything to you. I've never been much of a businessman, just a guy who loves making things. When I was struggling with what to do with the companies, I suddenly thought of you, John. Really? I always wondered why you chose me. You grew up watching your father, didn't you? You've become kind, thoughtful, and you've grown into someone just like him." Kyle's words resonated deeply within me. I was touched to know he thought of me that way. "You're a strong person because you never abandon those who are weak. That's why I knew I could trust you with everything." "Yeah. Dad's the best and the strongest." "Yes, the absolute best." "Come on, now I'm embarrassed." I felt a renewed sense of gratitude for everyone around me. The reason I've been able to stay true to myself all these years is thanks to my parents, my family, Kyle, and Kevin. "Dad, let's go back to the island soon." "Yes, let's head back soon. To the place where I truly belong."